Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's the CD guy, Johnny Z here. Thank you so much for tuning back into the channel, and today we're going to be talking 80s heavy metal in 10 albums, and this is by far, without exaggeration, the hardest video I've had to do on the channel. I first started with 50 albums because, there are so many great 80s metal albums here, and I whittled it down to a top 10, so these are the 10 greatest 80s metal albums of all time, in my opinion. Number 10, gonna get things started here with The Hall of the Mountain King by Savatage. This album is pure theatrical metal magic. Savatage combined power, speed, and classical influence into, a sound that felt both relentless but sophisticated at the same time, and this is really where the band matured, I'd say, in their songwriting on this record, and it's great to hear. It marked a turning point for the band, introducing a darker, more symphonic direction that would define some of their later work as well. John Oliva's vocals are raw and intense, and the title track is an absolute masterpiece of, metal meets classical drama type of track there, and it's like heavy metal's answer to gothic opera, and it rules, right? Gotta love tracks on here. Some other standouts like 24 Hours Ago, Beyond the Doors of the Dark, Legions, Strange Wings is just so much fun. The Price You Pay, White Witch, Last Dawn, and Devastation to close things out. Number 9, let's go with Among the Living by Anthrax. Released in 1987, this album blends razor-sharp thrash with fun and infectious energy. The songwriting here is incredibly well crafted. It's full of dynamic arrangements and infectious hooks that are, just as memorable as they are thrashy and aggressive, right? And tracks on here like Caught in a Mosh and Indians are absolute thrash anthems, right? Built on explosive riffs and, chant-worthy choruses, right? Those are crowd pleasers for sure, but there's a lot going on beneath the surface here as well. Other standouts include the title track, Among the Living, I Am the Law, probably my favorite song on this record, Evil Nick a Pheasant, which absolutely needs to be used on the Super Bowl one year. Let's see, Skeleton in the Closet is great, One World, Horror of It All, Imitation of Life, so lots of great stuff on here. Scott Ian's rhythm guitar is a driving force throughout, delivering tight, aggressive riffs with, groove and precision. Charlie Bernante's drumming is very inventive here as well. Joey Belladonna's soaring vocals add melody and a unique dramatic flair that give the album its distinct tone, and when he joined for Spreading the Disease, it took the band to the next level, so this really feels like the next phase in their development. And Among the Living is the album where Anthrax, I'd say, fully stepped into their own here, not just as one of the big four, but as their own band with a unique voice, style, and attitude that set them apart from everybody else. Next up, let's talk a little bit of doom metal here. The 80s is really when Candlemass took the torch of doom metal from Black Sabbath and ran with it. So that being said, coming in at number 8, gonna go with 1987's Nightfall by Candlemass, who took doom metal to an almost operatic level with this record. The slow, crushing riffs and the dramatic vocals of Messiah Margolin gave the band a sound that was, both majestic but super doomy at the same time. Standouts on here for me include The Well of Souls, At the Gallows End, Samaritan, Dark Are the Veils of Death, Mourner's Lament, Bewitched, Black Candles, all of which are drenched in atmosphere and sorrow, but still manage to feel powerful and triumphant at the same time. And this album defined epic doom metal and set a bar that's still very hard to top. Number 7, gonna go with 1988's Operation Mindcrime by Queensryche. The songwriting is incredibly detailed and dynamic. It weaves elements of progressive metal, hard rock, and, theatrical storytelling in here as well into one seamless, emotionally charged story and journey throughout the entire record. And tracks like Revolution Calling and Spreading the Disease, they drive the plot forward. You've got some really punchy riffs on there and, sharp vocals. Vocal delivery from Jeff Tate sounds phenomenal. And you have more atmospheric moments on here as well, like the epic Sweet Sister Mary right in the middle of the record, which showcases the band's depth and, more of a dramatic flair, I guess you could say. But what's most impressive is how nothing feels forced on this record. The songs work as standalone anthems and as vital parts of one bigger story as well. Jeff Tate's vocals are nothing short of masterful on this record, shifting from a really vulnerable delivery to vengeful as well, so I thought that was really cool. And, of course, at the same time, you've got Chris DeGarmo's guitar work, which offers both melody and menace. And, every detail, lyrically and musically, was clearly thought through very thoroughly. The production is clean but not sterile, giving the complex arrangements room to breathe, and Operation Mindcrime proved that metal could be a narrative-driven thing as well, and emotionally resonant without losing its edge. And so, with that being said, had to include it here on the list, one of my favorite concept albums of all time. Number 7, let's go with Operation Mindcrime. Number 6, Rain and Blood by Slayer from 1986. And this album is nothing short of a full-on thrash metal assault. It's fast, it's furious, and it's completely unrelenting from beginning to end, and it's a masterclass in extreme thrash metal, and, it's just under 30 minutes long. It's lean, mean, and razor sharp, and there's not a single moment of filler on this entire record here. I mean, every riff from the guitar duo of Kerry King and Jeff Hanneman is great. Every drum blast from Dave Lombardo, every growled lyric belted out by Tom Araya is delivered with surgical precision as well, and an intensity that was unparalleled at the time. Rick Rubin's production gives this album a really sinister edge, but it's crisp at the same time. So it sounds like the band growing in their sound here, as opposed to their first two records. So definitely an improvement here in the production as well. And when this dropped in 1986, it made other thrash bands sound like they were playing in slow motion, with standout tracks on here that I enjoy, like Angel of Death, Piece by Piece, Necrophobic, Altar of Sacrifice, Criminally Insane, Epidemic, Postmortem, Raining Blood, Aggressive Perfector as well. So top to bottom, one of the all-time best thrash albums. Moving into the top 5 now with Ride the Lightning by Metallica. Gonna stick with thrash metal here, and just 1 year after the unrelenting debut Kill 'Em All, the band took a massive creative leap forward, both musically and thematically, with this masterpiece, my favorite Metallica album of all time. And what makes Ride the Lightning so essential isn't just the heaviness, although there is plenty of that, but also the maturity in the songwriting here, the ambitiousness of the band at this point, and the willingness to break rules and kind of bend what thrash metal could be around that time period. I mean, the irony of thrash metal purists who thought they sold out with Fade to Black is hilarious in hindsight, and other standouts on here include Fight Fire with Fire, Ride the Lightning, From the Bell Tolls, Trapped Under Ice, I Like Escape, even though the band doesn't, Creeping Death, and Call of Cthulhu. Cliff Burton's influence on this album is massive, and his musicality and love for classical and progressive rock shaped a lot of the arrangements on this record, and it was starting to rub off on the rest of the band as well. James Hetfield's riffs are, tighter and more dynamic, and for as much flack as people want to give Lars Ulrich as a drummer, his drumming is more varied here on this record. Kirk's solos blend, speed with storytelling as well, as the band also grew as lyricists, and this whole album marks a huge step forward, not just for Metallica, but for thrash metal in general. Rest in peace, Ozzy Osbourne. Number 4 on the list here, we have Diary of a Madman, an album I've been talking about a lot lately on the channel, and yeah, my favorite Ozzy solo album here. I prefer it to Blizzard of Oz just slightly, and this is, Ozzy and company building on the success of Blizzard of Oz, and this album took everything a step further. Darker themes, more complex arrangements, and even bolder sense of atmosphere, I would say. And at its core, the incredible partnership between Ozzy and Randy Rhoads, whose guitar work on this record is nothing short of legendary. And Rhoads' neoclassical influence is woven throughout the entire record, and his solos aren't just technically brilliant, but they're deeply melodic and packed with, with feeling, right? Giving the album the timeless quality that goes beyond just simple shredding. Standouts for me on this record include Over the Mountain, Flying High Again, You Can't Kill Rock and Roll, Believer, Little Dolls is a great deep cut, Sato, and Diary of a Madman to close things out. I think it's a great mix of upbeat rockers and darker, more serious tracks with some of Ozzy's best vocal delivery in his entire solo catalog. Top 3 now, going to go with Bonded by Blood by Exodus. This album was the blueprint for Bay Area thrash metal. Released in 1985, this debut may not have gotten the mainstream recognition it deserved at the time, but its influence is undeniable even to this day. And what makes this album stand out, beyond the sheer aggression and the songwriting, is how well crafted and tightly written the songs are. And it's easy to focus on the speed and the chaos, but beneath the surface on this record, it's packed with, great songwriting talent at play here. Every track is full of explosive riffs, clever tempo changes, and mosh-worthy choruses that stick with you, right? I mean, Gary Holt and Rick Hunold's guitar work is absolutely vicious. This whole album is riff city, in my opinion, right? And no part of it feels recycled or dull. Songs like A Lesson in Violence and Piranha, and the title track as well, aren't just fast, but they're structured and with intent here, and every track here has a purpose, using breakdowns and solos in ways to keep the momentum constantly shifting, but never sloppy. So, I'd say it's a very unpredictable album, especially upon a first listen, and then there, of course, is Paul Bailout's vocals, and I think he kind of brought more of a punk rock vibe to the band with his delivery, right? His energy was very punk, I would say, which adds another interesting dimension to the record, and creatively, it pushed the boundaries of thrash's intensity and precision, and pushed other burgeoning bands in the scene to keep up. Number 2, Defenders of the Faith by Judas Priest from 1984. This is Priest at their most anthemic and polished, with Rob Halford delivering some of his best vocal performances ever. Defenders of the Faith is packed with iconic riffs and massive hooks, Free Will Burning alone could melt faces, and The Sentinel is still one of the band's most underrated epics, but it walked the line between heavy aggression and arena-ready accessibility without sacrificing 1 ounce of metal credibility. It's slick, it's loud, and it proves the Priests were, the true masters of their sound and their craft during this era, with other standouts here that include Jawbreaker, Rock Hard, Ride Free, Love Bites, Eat Me Alive, Some Heads Are Gonna Roll, Night Comes Down, very underrated track, love that song, Heavy Duty, and Defender to the Face to close things out. We have a pretty extensive honorable mentions section here because I started with 50 albums here, and there's so many, right? But these are some that were close to making the list, but I can only fit 10 here today, so I want to give some special recognition to Keeper of the Seven Keys Part 2 by Helloween, Wasp's self-titled debut album, Metal Heart by Accept, Tooth and Nail by Dokken, Heaven and Hell by Black Sabbath, Dio, Last in Line, great sophomore album, Megadeth, Peace Sells, But Who's Buying? And then lastly, of course, Melissa by Merciful Fate. Great record here by Mercy on their debut. What, did you guys think I wasn't going to have Iron Maiden at number 1? Of course I'm going to have Iron Maiden at number 1. We have Powerslave here, closing things out. From start to finish, this album shows the band at their creative peak, and of course, throughout the entire 80s, Maiden went on a generational run, right, all the way from their debut through Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, that 8-year period of just classic after classic after classic. But what makes Powerslave stand out is its ambitious songwriting, on tracks like Aces High, 2 Minutes to Midnight, right, Flash of the Blade, The Duelists, Back in the Village, Powerslave, Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, all wrapped in galloping riffs, soaring vocals, and rich musical textures, and musically, the band were tighter than ever here, right? Their classic lineup of, Steve Harris, Nico McBrain, Bruce Dickinson, Adrian Smith, and Dave Murray, right? And this album, it's full of that double guitar attack from Smith and Murray that's both melodic and ferocious, right? Steve Harris's bass is super pronounced in the mix. It's really the driving force behind this record. Nico's drumming adds, rhythmic complexity as well. And Bruce Dickinson's vocals, range from really powerful to operatic at times as well, that tied all together with a dramatic flair that only he can bring to the table here. And Powerslave is where Maiden fully embraced the theatrical and epic side of metal without sacrificing speed or intensity, and that will become a hallmark of Maiden's sound going forward. So, of course, Iron Maiden had to be on this list, and I have to go with none other than the mighty Powerslave. So that wraps up this video here, taking a look at 80s metal in 10 albums. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel down below, help me reach my goal of 5,000 subs here on YouTube. We're only 20 subscribers away, so if you've not subbed to the channel, please feel free to do so. It is greatly appreciated. Turn on the bell for notifications so you don't miss a new upload, and let me know down in the comment section below, what are your thoughts on my picks? Obviously, I had a lot more, but I whittled it down to a top 10. And what are some of your favorite metal albums of the 80s? What are your 80s metal albums in 10 records? I want to hear from you, so let me know all that good stuff down in the comments. And until next time, it's the CD guy, Johnny Z, signing off. Take care, everybody.